Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series for supporting neurodiverse children during divorce. We're so excited to have this opportunity to share with you this special webinar on self-care for special needs children with disabilities during the divorce process. I'd like to introduce my teammates from LoneStar Lend. We worked very hard to put this together for you as part of our service learning project. So I'm Marianne Hughes, and helping me in this project are Mimi Wadei, Crystal John, and Gail Hovhanesian. And we have Dr. Jaggers, a clinical psychologist, with us today presenting. We are so pleased that she could offer her time to be here with us today. And she actually was in the hospital yesterday, so we should appreciate her making the sacrifice to join us today and share this self-care information. And we hope that after this seminar, she does her own self-care as well. And in addition to this session, we'll be having two more, one on strategies to help special needs children through the divorce process, and also a parent panel in March for people who have been through the process themselves. So we are pleased to share with you how to help children with neurodiverse disabilities through the divorce process. And next slide. And the LoneStar Lend program is a wonderful opportunity if you all want to apply to learn about leadership, education, and autism and neurodevelopmental disabilities. There's an application online if you're all interested. They look at family members as well as self-advocates and professionals. So definitely it's a great way to learn more about autism and all different disabilities. And please reach out to us for more information if you'd like that application. And next slide. And you've received these webinar procedures in the mail, so I won't read them. But basically, we welcome your participation. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we hope to get to them at the end. And we value your opinion of this webinar as well. So there'll be a satisfaction survey put in the chat. So feel free during the session or at the end to click on that. It's just 5 questions. So we appreciate your input on that. And now I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Karen Jaggers. We are so pleased to have her. She's an expert in the field of autism, in neurodevelopmental disabilities, and very highly regarded in Houston, Texas, and around the state, if not the country as well. So thank you so much, and we're excited that you're here today.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I love LoneStar Lend. It's such a great project, so I'm happy to be a part of it. My name is Dr. Karen Jaggers, and I was asked to present for this because I have a lot of background working with families with divorce. I'm a certified parenting coordinator, facilitator, and mediator. So that basically means is that when mom and dad can't get along in extreme cases, a judge court ordered them to see me. So I have quite a bit of experience in dealing with the divorce, especially with special needs children. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. I'm a grief specialist, which I often deal with children of divorce for that. And then my most important qualification, I believe, is my MOM certification, and that I myself have a 25-year-old with autism spectrum disorder. So I love working with these children and have quite a bit of experience working with the issue of divorce because unfortunately it's fairly common in these families. So let's get started. The very first thing I'd like to say is that self-care is so important. When you're going through a divorce, you know, you have to take the best thing you can do for your kid is take care of their parent. If you had hired someone to take care of your child and it was their sole responsibility to take care of your child, they would be so important to you. And you would do anything for that person, and you would make sure that they were well cared for and in a really good place emotionally. But when it's ourselves, we tend to not do that. And I just find that so fascinating that, you know, if it was somebody else that was taking care of our child, they would be so important, and their mental health and everything would be so important. But it's so hard for us, particularly as parents and me as a mom, to say, oh no, I need to put myself first. So it is just so important going through an emotional thing like a divorce for you to make sure and understand that you have to take care of yourself so that you can be there for your child. Along those same lines, that requires that a lot of times you're going to have to make some decisions that would require you to not spread yourself too thin, because this is, obviously a stressful and difficult period for everyone. It's important that you also create a support system for you and your child. Some of the things that I suggest you would do for self-care is get enough sleep, eat healthy foods, limit alcohol, get regular exercise, limit your commitments. And there are studies that show that 30 minutes of fresh air every day dramatically improve everyone's moods, despite no matter how you may be feeling. So even when we have the lockdown, I tell every one of my patients, you have to go sit outside for 30 minutes. It may be on your back patio, but you need to go sit outside and get some fresh air for 30 minutes. So that's just an unusual piece of advice that I wanted to include in here. So when I'm working with children, their responses are, they have very unrealistic concerns and they have very real concerns. Of the unrealistic ones of, can I love both my parents? What's going to happen to me now? Maybe this is my fault. Those are the more unrealistic ones. But the real concerns is, do I have to choose sides? And why is mom so sad? Why is dad so sad? What do I tell my friends? Despite the fact that divorce is very common nowadays, it's surprising children are very afraid to have to tell anybody about it. Where will I live? And what about my pets? That's a big one too. What, do I get to keep my pet? I always tell people the kid gets to keep the pet. Mom and dad they can figure out what they want, but the kids get to keep the pet. So divorce creates a lot of feelings, and no one gets married expecting to get divorced. I think that should be a given. No one ever goes into something expecting for it to end in divorce. And sadly, with children with special needs, there is a disproportionate amount of divorces. One study I saw had an 80% divorce rate. And that really doesn't even surprise me, unfortunately. There's a lot of stress, as we all know. If you're a parent of a child with special needs, it's stressful. Of course it's stressful, but it also puts a lot of stress on the marriage. And so we do have a disproportionate amount of divorces with our population. Children often struggle to understand divorce, and children with special needs often have an even greater difficulty in understanding what is happening to their family. So co-parenting is supposed to be a team sport. Kids often say to me, will I have 2 separate birthday parties? Why does mom send messages to dad through me and vice versa? And then they don't want to spy on their mom or dad for their mom or dad. Please only ask your children need to know information about the other home life that they have. It's so much easier also when children have similar rules. It's very hard for children, no matter what their age is, when they go to mom's house and there's one set of rules, and to dad's house and there's a completely different set of rules. Now, I understand sometimes you may not have a co-parenting partner that's cooperative or even present, in this process, but it is important to at least attempt to have somewhat similar rules and boundaries, because it's very hard on the children. And then one of the things that I'm always taken by is I'll have kids say to me how hard it is when they go to a school event. And I had this one young man who said, my parents hate each other, and so when I play football, dad's on one end of the stadium and mom's on the other end of the stadium, and I don't know what to do. I'm in trouble no matter what I do. If I run to mom first, dad's gonna be mad. If I run to dad first, mom's gonna be mad. He's like, can't they just sit together and be civil and sit in the middle so I can just run up and see both my parents? And I think a lot of people don't think that, but that happens in a lot of different situations, school plays, et cetera, et cetera. So I always tell parents, you don't even have to like each other, but can you just pretend to be civil to each other for the sake of your kid? Because it never really occurs to them that the kid is like, I lose no matter what, because I I'm going to make somebody upset if I go to the other parent first. So when one parent doesn't parent, unfortunately, this is the case in a good portion of our special needs population. And in a perfect world, both parents would work together and to provide that stable foundation for their kids. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. And often one parent ends up doing the majority, if not all of the parenting alone with very little support from the other. But it's so important to make sure your child understands that the other parent's absence is not because of them. And to, you know, to try to just explain it that the other parent is having problems of their own that may be causing them to be unable to participate in the child's life at that time. I think we have to try really hard not to say anything bad about the other parent, because the child will always take that personally towards themselves too. You don't have to make excuses for the absent parent's behavior, but it will only hurt your child's self-esteem if they're made to feel that their absent parent is a bad person. You know, children developmentally see themselves as half mom and half dad. So when mom says bad things about dad, then the child means, well, that must mean I'm bad too. Okay. And when dad, the same thing, dad says bad things about mom, these children internalize it, and parents don't realize that that's what happens. And so for no reason other than that, you need to try really hard not to say, you know, bad things about your ex to your children, because they really will take it. Even if you say, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about dad or mom, they'll still internalize it. Well, I'm 50% dad, and if you're saying dad's a bad person, then I'm a bad person. I had a sweet little kid tell me, well, my dad says my mom is evil. So then he really was worried that that's what part of our therapy came down to, is he really thought he was evil. And I was like, you're not evil. Why do you think you're evil? Oh, well, mom said, you know, so you really need to understand that what you say about your ex-spouse really does translate to your children. So when one parent is not around, what you have to do is you have to look for opportunities to create an extended family for your child. Hopefully you have relatives around, neighbors. I encourage people to become more involved in their neighborhood activities. There's a number of support groups for families that I have listed at the end of this presentation. YMCA has great activities. They have family activities, they have sports, they have basically anything you could possibly want to do. And then church activities. If you're interested in attending church, that would be another thing where your child would feel like they have a safer extended family. Sometimes we just have to make the family that we don't have. Allow your child to love both parents and families. It is so important. Hold on, I need to move this. It is so important for children to fully understand that they never have to choose between loving both their parents. They should be encouraged to love both their parents as well as the extended family members. The greater support system that your child has is the greater support system for you as a parent. So, you know, that includes not saying bad things about the extended family of your ex-spouse. And then here I actually put in here, children perceive themselves as half mom and half dad. When parents criticize or villainize the other parent, the children often internalize that must mean that they are bad people too. So please be careful how you speak to your child about their parent. Children will follow their parents' lead. The best gift that you can give to your child is to be a happy and healthy parent. You know, children are resilient and they will adjust to new circumstances. But when you model for them that everything's going to be okay, then they believe everything's going to be okay. But if you're modeling for them that everything is not okay, then they're going to believe that too, no matter what you say. They'll take their emotional cues from you. And many families experience divorce. You know, assure your children that there are many other kids, even in their class, you know, at their school and at their church and all of their soccer team. There are many other families that have gone through the same thing, but there's absolutely nothing to be embarrassed about for that. It's also really important to inform the teachers when you're going through a divorce, because the teacher needs to kind of keep an extra eye out for your children. Parents need love and support too. Yes, you absolutely cannot pour from an empty pitcher. You know, these are all the cliches that we always hear. Put your oxygen mask on first, but these are so true. This goes back to what I start with, that, you know, you have to take care, because you are the person that's taking care of your child. You have got to be healthy. You have got to be mentally healthy and physically healthy. So it is very important for us to try to take care of ourselves. And then I put that this is a new beginning for you too, as a parent. So you need to be, and for you as a family, this is the opportunity for you to create a new life for you and your child the way that you want it to be. Often kids are, there's a saying that a kid would rather be from a broken home than live in one. And I think that's very true. I think most kids will tell me that. So this is the opportunity for you to create a happier home for you and your child. And children, there, put it on the bottom. Sorry, I didn't read ahead. Yes, children truly would rather be from a broken home than live in one. Try to reframe the divorce as a fresh start to build the life that you want to have. Talking to your children about divorce. I got some great information from the Mayo Clinic. They put out a big article, and it talks about breaking the news to your children. To sit down with your child, hopefully along with your spouse, and explain that you're getting the divorce. But to speak very simply about it, you know, age appropriately, but skip the ugly details. You know, just admit that say that you're both sad, but do not provide them information that a child does not need to know. Make sure that your child understands that divorce is only between the adults, and that, you know, they did nothing to cause a divorce. And I would say nearly every child I have that have come to me in my practice for some reason still internalizes, well, if I just did this, then mom and dad would still be together. And that is part of my job as a therapist, is to help these children understand that it really is not their fault, but they unrealistically internalize it. So you need to both hopefully be able to reassure your child that you both love them. Also tell your child's teacher or school counselor and doctor about the divorce, because they can observe your child and keep you updated on any changes they may be seeing. I would expect a mix of reactions. Your child might be most interested in concrete things. Where will I live? Do I need to change schools? Who takes me to swimming lessons? Do I still get to go to swimming lessons? You know, as you work out the terms of the divorce, I would try to keep the child's routine as stable as possible and change as little as possible. But knowing what to expect is of such importance for your child. Keeping your child out of the fight. Please keep your child out of the fight for the same reason I already explained. But how your child adjusts after your divorce depends greatly on how well you and your ex-spouse can communicate and cooperate with each other. You know, to show respect for your child's relationship with your ex-spouse. You know, I hate to say it, but you don't have to like them. You just have to pretend to like them in front of their children. You know, you just have to be respectful, and the respect goes both ways. Don't speak badly about your ex-spouse in front of your child. Don't force your child to choose sides. Don't bring up money issues in front of your child, because they often feel really guilty about that, even though these are things that we're automatically like we're doing soccer for our child, but then they start feeling really guilty. You know, it's no fun for a child if you're going to make them feel guilty about it. It's hard for them to enjoy something if they're going to then feel guilty about it. So don't use your child as a pawn to hurt the other parent. Don't bend the rules. And then it might be tempting to relax your parental rules while your child is grieving the divorce, but this can lead to more insecurity. Children really do thrive on consistency. They really need structure and a routine. And they will push your boundaries, particularly going through divorce, because it says, well, let's see what I can get by with now, especially if rules are different at both houses. But it does take time for them to adjust. But you know, children are very resilient, and they will adjust to the situation, and it may be a happier, better situation than it used to be. Oftentimes it is. Children's reactions to divorce. So depending on their age, I would say that would determine how they usually react. Children under 2, they may become really clingy and irritable, but most children aren't very aware at the age of 2 of that. Preschool age children are going to need some extra help determining that they didn't cause a divorce, and that they can't do anything to reunite mom and dad. School age children tend to get more angry, and they will worry a lot more. The school age child will, of what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to mom, what's going to happen to dad, what's going to happen to the dog. And there is a great deal of fantasizing of getting back together. I would say adolescents, junior high and up, they usually don't have a lot of fantasy about, will mom and dad get back together, because they've been pretty aware, I would say, that things probably weren't good for a while. So I see less of that with the adolescents, but they will act out. They can become depressed, and they will probably, you need to keep an eye out for, attention-seeking behavior. And, of course, encourage your child to share their feelings as openly as possible. The teenagers obviously are going to push their boundaries more than anyone else. And they often try to play mom against dad and dad against mom. And, well, dad's going to give me this and mom's going to give me this. So they're pretty smart by the time they're teenagers. So I would expect that from the teenagers. Don't be surprised. Magical thinking. So it's important to recognize that there is a great deal of grief when a family splits apart in most cases, and there's a lot of uncertainty for everyone involved. Children experience often something called magical thinking, and magical thinking is when the child believes that a person can cause things to happen just by thinking or wishing it to happen. So almost all children experience some level of magical thinking around their divorce, and they just think if they wish for it enough or pray for it enough, that they can get their parents back together. So it's really important for your child to understand that there is no amount of wishing or hoping that are going to bring the parents back together, and that there's nothing they can do that can change what's already happened. So no amount of good or bad behavior will change things. Just as it isn't their fault that the divorce happened, they can't wish things back to the way that they used to be. And this is usually more of the elementary age kids, I would say. Like I said, the older kids tend to have a more realistic view of how the marriage has been going. I have 2 houses. You can adjust you can help your child adjust to having 2 houses. Often they're confused and they're sad and they're mad, and sometimes you have to move from the original family home, and that's difficult for them too. But they've never, think about it, you've never lived in 2 houses at the same time, so it's kind of asking a lot for kids to understand that. But while you can't speak for your spouse, what you can do as a parent is you can reassure the child that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you have whatever you need. I realize that there are situations when the other spouse may not be present, and or only present conditionally. So you can't really speak for the spouse, but you can at least speak for you, that I promise you that I will do everything I can to make sure you have what you need. It's difficult to split their favorite things, but usually you can have them take a certain amount of toys to dad's house and a certain amount of toys to mom's house. Sometimes they want to bring something back and forth. That gets a little dicey when they accidentally leave it, but it's very important for them to understand that they're allowed to like both houses. And then, sometimes I'll say to a child, there's some good things about having 2 houses. You can have 2 bedrooms, you get to have 2 birthday parties, probably, you get 2 different sets of friends, it's double the friends. And so I would try as hard as you can to sound as positive as you can about having the 2 houses if you actually are going to be truly co-parenting with each other. I suggest getting a giant wall calendar and putting it up in each house, and where you have all of the child's information on it. This is when they have soccer, and this is when the play is, and and things like that, and they can have that at both houses, then I have a lot of parents who I've had take like let's take a highlighter, and these are the days that are the pink days are when I'm at mom's house, and the blue days are when I'm at dad's house. And just so your child has a visual of what their life is like, because their life is pretty upended. So if they can look and see, okay, I can look at the next week, and the next week, this is where I'm going to be, and this is what I'm going to be doing. It really does help them a lot. There's lots of different kinds of families, and that's so important to explain to children these days. And that, you will still be a family. You're just going to be a different kind of family. That is what the experts suggest we say. While the type of family is changing, that you're still connected, and you and your ex-spouse will always be there for your children, I can hope, and that will not change. But there are lots of different kind of families in the world, and I think once a child starts talking about that to their friends, they're kind of surprised. Oh no, turns out some of my friends' parents are divorced and I didn't even know it. So I think it's very hard for a child to initially say that, but once they start talking to people about it, I think they're always surprised at how many families are, additional families, and that they aren't the only person who's going through this. But they do need, in a perfect world, they obviously need to know that their parents will always love them, whether they're together or apart. Tell them that they are always in your heart. It's your child can come out of this stronger, and especially if your home situation before the divorce was difficult or volatile, they can come out so much better. So divorce isn't always the end of the world. Sometimes it really is a positive thing for your child. Parenting is forever. When I say parenting is a team sport, in a perfect world, it's a team sport. In a perfect world, mom and dad are both going to be engaged. But unfortunately, that's not the case. But when I say it's a team sport, sometimes you have a team and not all the players are there, unfortunately. But you are forever. When I'm counseling the parents from the judge, I have to tell them that, you are always going to be connected because you had these children together. So despite whatever difference you might have with your ex-spouse, it's really important to keep that in perspective, because, this does not end when your child is 18 years old. Parenting doesn't end then. You will be dealing with weddings and graduations and grandchildren. And so it truly is in your best interest to do everything you can to try to have an amicable or at least civil relationship in front of your child. Learning to get along with your ex-spouse is hard, but constantly battling with an ex-spouse is even harder. So it talks about pick your heart. Structure and routine, I talked about this a little bit earlier. Most children are not mature enough to provide their own structure. So it's really important that parents provide the structure for them. While a schedule does not need to be constant, a child will feel safer and more secure when they know what to expect in their day or in their week or in their month. So that, once again, the big family calendar. So I'll put it in here again. It's always a good idea to have a big family calendar. Everybody in my family, we have one, even, and my husband and I are still married, and we have a big family calendar because I practice what I preach, and everybody in my family has a different color of pen. And so we can walk by and look at that calendar, and we can see what's going on in our lives. Our family wizard, if you have not heard of this, you need to look into it if you are divorced, because our family wizard is an incredible program. I think it costs $100 per individual per year. And it is an incredible program that you can, to help you communicate with your ex-spouse. It has a calendar on it where you can put on, Susie has soccer this day, and you can plug your child's routine in. You can plug your visitation schedule in there, and you can also email each other back and forth. So I think that saves so many arguments to be able to put it in writing. And I think people are usually more civil in writing than they are just when they're talking. So I highly recommend our family wizard. I actually make all couples who work with me through divorce stuff subscribe to that. And I wanted to say that there is a great life after divorce waiting for you and your child, and it just may take a little while to get there. So here I have a lot of resources. There's a lot of resources for families with children with special needs. And ASPE of Houston is one that I have all the contact information on here. It's a really great group. They have where you go and they have a child, teen, adult groups where the person on the spectrum goes to, and then they have another separate meeting where the parents go to. So both of you are they're getting some socialization and some fun and maybe some social skills, and you're having a great parent conversation with other parents. Hope for Three is a great organization that provides a great many opportunities, social opportunities and scholarships, as a matter of fact, for families. Easter Seals of Greater Houston. Nobody seems to realize what all Easter Seals does. Easter Seals has 100 different programs. You really should log on to Easter Seals and check out what kind of programs they have. They have programs for adults. They have programs for young children. They have Parents Night Out. They have 4 different locations where every Friday night it's like $10, $15, and you can drop your child off with certified caregivers for 3 hours while you go have dinner or go grocery shopping or whatever you need to do. They have really wonderful, wonderful programs. So please look at Easter Seals. Just very few people realize the kind of programs they have. There's a tremendous amount of programs. Family to Family Network is a great organization, and it is a nonprofit which provides free parent training and resources to families. And just about any question you have, I think these people can answer it. Everyone there is so knowledgeable, and you can call there. I recommend, if you want to, they can even give you information about going and doing advocacy. They don't provide the advocacy for you at school, but they'll give you advice about it. So I always recommend calling and making an appointment, so you would have like a set hour that would be uninterrupted. But I highly recommend Family to Family Network. They would be my go-to place for parent training and resources. Houston Area Disability Network is another network that provides all kinds of information to families, and it's Autism Disability Network, but most of their resources would provide for any disability. Houston Autism Meetup Group, I haven't dealt with them myself, but I hear great things about them. And so the whole point is to create some social gatherings for our kids. Katie Autism Support is something that I actually founded, like 15 years ago. And back when my son was diagnosed, there was no other kids with autism that I knew. And I remember saying that, if I survive this, parenting this child, and if my marriage survives, and if my family survives, or if I survive it at all, that I promise I would set something up. And so like 15 years ago, I started Katie Autism Support. They have I'm not very involved now, but I am on their Facebook group. The Facebook group has over 500 families in it now. So it's just a phenomenal group. And Cynthia Reese runs it for many years now. She's been running it and doing a great job. You can post a question and you have 20 answers, within a couple of hours. They also have, I don't know if they've resumed them yet, but they do have monthly meetings at St. Peter's out here in Katy. So I don't know if they've resumed those due to COVID or not, but they traditionally have those. But they're just a tremendous source of all kinds of information on Facebook. So Superstars of Katy is also another social group, just for fun, for kids to get together. I haven't done it, but I once again have had many, many people talk about how great it is. And so I wanted to put that in here. And then Texas Autism Advocacy, Michelle Guppy is phenomenal. She moderates it, and it is everything any kind of question you possibly have about autism, you can get answered there. And there's a number of extremely knowledgeable people that are on that site. And then I put some national ones: National Autism Association, National Autism Society, and Autism Speaks would be the national organizations that I would go to. And that's me. And I just want to thank everybody for having me speak today. I'm hoping that this has provided some insight to you. Here's my email address. So if anybody would like to email me, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mary Ann.
Dr. Jaggers, we have a
Yes.
few questions in the chat that I will read off to you. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will go through them. The first question is, in addition to the great suggestions you provided about structure and visuals, are there strategies that work well for kids on the autism spectrum? And would social stories be something that would be helpful?
Yes, social stories are excellent. I think the person who is speaking in the next edition of this seminar series is going to speak about social stories. I highly recommend them, and I use them with lots of students. And really, once you start learning about them, you can create it. It's not hard to write a social story for your own child. So I think that it's Dr. Forrester is speaking on that. And but those social stories are great, and I encourage everybody to learn how to write them themselves, and because you can write one for any situation.
The next question that we have, what if your ex's family do not reach out to the kids? Is it up to the ex to encourage that, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a very sad situation, or what my thoughts are on it. It does happen. I guess I would initially address it with your ex and say, do you understand? Hopefully the ex is having something to do with them, but I think you need to maybe say to the ex, do you realize the message this is sending to your children that your family doesn't want anything to do with them? I would certainly try to have them engage. I know it's difficult, but as I said earlier, it's a greater support system for your child.
Thank you. Someone said, thank you, Dr. Jaggers, for your wonderful insight. Is it common to see any problems between siblings during the divorce process? Do you have any tips on how siblings can speak to each other about it?
I don't really see a big problem between siblings. I think I see children acting out. I mean, I think I definitely see children acting out. So, but I don't really see like greater fighting among siblings. Now, they may also handle it differently. That could be part of it too.
I think you touched on this, but one question that did come up a couple of times is, if the other parent is not present or not active, what are some tips for the
right
parent that is?
And I hate that. I don't see how anybody could not be there for their kid, but it happens more often than you want to know. And the tips for it is you just have to kind of create a family atmosphere yourself by including some of your good friends. You just kind of have to build a new family, a new support system, not only for you, but for your children. And I think I addressed that in one of my slides about, you can become more involved in church, or the YMCA has a lot of family programs, but you just have to expand your relatives, your friends, and create a new family. It's a shame and it's their loss, but you just have to create a new family.
Going back to the kids on the spectrum, any suggestions for a child that's nonverbal, or have you dealt with that maybe in your practice when the parents are going through divorce, and how does that translate?
Well, it would depend, I guess, on their level of understanding, because I do think that there's a lot of nonverbal children that understand so much more than we think they do. I don't usually work with nonverbal children because as a therapist, they can't really answer back, but I would do some social stories on that. I think that would be a good idea. that would be how I would have to talk to them about it, would be to maybe, read them a social story.
Another question is, how can you explain to your child why the routine is different in mom's and dad's house if they have an intellectual disability?
I'm not really sure you can. I hate to have that as an answer, but unfortunately you can't control what goes on at the other spouse's house. I mean, I would like to think that both spouses would work together because it is in the best interest of their child to have, similar structure at both houses, but it is very common to have, just completely different rules at the different houses. But it really is in your child's best interest to not have to try to remember two sets of rules.
And last question, which I think is very good to seal the deal on all of this amazing information. How do you know when a child might need to see a counselor?
When they're acting out, if they seem like they're depressed, a lot of times, I mean, kids don't want to make their parents sad. And I think that a lot of times kids will come in and tell me something that they won't tell their parents. And I'll say, well, have you talked to mom about this? Or have you talked to dad about this? And they're like, well, no, I don't want to upset them. They're already sad, or, they don't want to make them mad, or they don't want to make them sad. They're afraid they don't want mom or dad to be mad because there's something they like about the other parent, or, but most of the time they're just kind-hearted kids who want to spare their parents from anything else. And I know their parents have been through a lot of pain. And so they, a lot of times, don't want to tell their parents because they just don't want to add to it. So I think that, I do think that the therapy can be very valuable to kids.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jaggers, for all the wonderful information you share. This has been tremendous I think for people who are starting the divorce process, as well as maybe those that have been divorced for quite a while. So definitely there's so many great nuggets in there.
People are welcome to, like my email's on here. You're welcome to send me an email and I'll get to it as quickly as I can. But I hope I answered most people's questions, and it's just such a difficult process for any family to go through, and all we can do is try to do the best we can for our kids.
Yeah, wonderful. And if you all could take a minute to just click on the survey and answer those questions real quick while I've got you on the screen. And we appreciate you all coming to participate in our session. We will be sending out this presentation to you so you can review it again and go over it and see if you have any more questions after that. And also I'd like to thank all my team members for all their hard work putting this together, and also to our faculty sponsor, Judy Blake, for all her support and guidance in our process as well. So thank you all, and we hope you can join us for the next session on February 16th with Dr. Forrester, talking about different strategies to help the children in divorce involving neurodevelopmental disabilities. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.